بسم الله الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. Before we begin though, who here knows of or remembers a particular event in the life of the Prophet ﷺ that resonates with you in hardship? Or maybe not has to resonate with you, but it's something that you find inspiring or intriguing. Is there anything in particular? Either with a particular person, with him, or an event, or something like this?
Drinking the water, Zamzam, standing up.
Drinking the Zamzam water?
Standing up.
Standing up.
Not sitting down.
Okay. Is it something that intrigues you? Yes. No. I'm asking about something that resonates with you, that you relate to, that was a type of hardship with the Prophet ﷺ. Something that happened in the seerah, or something that happened in his life that you refer back to. Yes? It's either a yes and you're embarrassed to say, which is really no embarrassment anyway, or it's a no and my mind is blank right now. I'm assuming the second one. Alright, Khair.
No, yeah.
Yeah.
But one of them might be like when he was in the cave,
yes,
and the soldiers are looking for him.
Yes.
He had to trust in Allah just by that spider's web.
Mm-hmm.
The symbol of a spider's web is between him and those soldiers.
Yes,
and he just, yeah.
The reason why I asked this question is because the Quran is a source of guidance for us. The Sunnah is a source of guidance for us. The Seerah is also a source of guidance for us. The Tabi'een, which is a generation that came after the Sahaba, who were basically like the children or the later children of the Sahaba, the generations that came after. When they were children, as they got older, they used to say that our parents used to teach us the Seerah like they used to teach us the Quran. When you think about studies, you think Quran, Sunnah, Quran, Hadith. The Seerah was a film, a 23-year-long film, a 23-year-long story of the revelation of the Quran and the Sunnah. So they said we used to learn the Seerah like we used to learn Quran. And the reason for this is that we should have reference points in the Quran, in the Sunnah, in the Seerah. So for example, if something happens in our life, the first thing that you think of is the similar thing that happened in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, in his life. Or something similar that happened with Umar ibn Khattab. Or something similar that happened with Mu'adh bin Jabal. Or something similar that happened with Uthman bin Affan. Or something similar that happened with Khadija or Aisha or whoever it might be. These are very important, references that keep our Iman up in the time that things take place in our life. Without it, you will be a lost compass. People that have problems, people that have issues, people that have challenges, and there is no human being on earth, not even the Anbiya, that didn't live without any challenges. The only time you would live without any challenges is in Jannah. There's a reason why this revelation was revealed and why all these events took place in the life of the Prophet ﷺ and among the Sahaba. For something would take place and then Allah would reveal guidance. They would ask him a question and Allah would reveal guidance. That's still in between our hands today. The wisdom behind it is that there, by Allah's knowledge and wisdom, that is relatable from then until the last day. Even in 2021, it's just as relatable today as it was 1400 years ago. There is no difference. It's not like, yeah, but it's more relatable back then. I don't believe that. In fact, we're finding it's becoming even more and more relatable now because of the scientific miracles that are coming out of the Quran that are being discovered through technology. the Quran is becoming more relatable in these days than it was back then. And this is, again, is a sign of the miracle of the Quran. So, every one of us faces challenges. And challenges, again according to the Quran, could be something that increases our iman. فَزَادَهُمْ إِيمَانًا وَقَالُوا حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. In the time of calamity, they increased their iman and they said, حَسْبُنَا اللَّهُ وَنِعْمَ الْوَكِيلُ. Allah is sufficient for me and He is the best of the one who takes care of my affairs. These calamities, you don't know the wisdom and the jewels and the treasures that come behind them. Even in business, I know one very successful businessman. Overseas, he said, in my life, I started 90 companies. 90. He said 80 of them were successful. He said 10 of them were complete failures. He said, I learned more about business in the 10 that I failed in, more than the 80 that I succeeded in. If you look at the Quran and the Seerah, you will find that many verses were revealed. In other words, many lessons were taught by Allah and many lessons were learned because of the calamities, because of the hardships. As one saying, they say that if you want olive oil, you can't get olive oil unless the olive is what? Pressed. No pressure, no olive oil. And they said you can't get perfume if the flowers aren't crushed. You can't get perfume. And charcoal, which is worth what, like $10 for 10 kilos, doesn't become diamonds except through what? Pressure. Call it pressure, call it calamities, call it challenges, call it problems, call it whatever it is. And all of these have references in the Quran and in the Seerah. And that's why it should be important for us to refer back to them whenever we face any challenges. I'll give you an example. I'll compare, and this is something that we do when we talk about having good followers. Because good leaders and good leadership, did we discuss leadership and good followers? No? I know you know what. No? Okay. You find the victory, generally, if you look through the history, is because of the followers, not because of the leaders. The Battle of Badr, was it a victory or a defeat? Victory. The Battle of Uhud, was it a victory or a defeat? Defeat. Who was the leader in both? Who was the leader in both of those battles? Who was the leader? The Prophet ﷺ. Does anyone have the eye to say that the Prophet ﷺ was a bad leader in Uhud? He was the best leader even up until today. He will always be the best leader. What caused the defeat of Uhud? The followers. What caused the victory of Badr? The followers. Because they were all obedient. Can you see the difference? Now, let's go to Musa alayhi salam. Musa alayhi salam, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala commands him to go and fight with Bani Israel. Bani Israel, what did they say to him? Go you and your Rabb, go fight. We are sitting here by ourselves. We are sitting here. Khalas, we're here. You want to go fight? You've been commanded to go fight? Go you. And they didn't even say go you and Allah. They said go you and your Rabb. In other words, we have nothing to do with it. We're sitting here. Look at the followers. Now, let's go back to the Battle of Badr. The Prophet ﷺ, he comes to the wells of Badr, not prepared for fighting. Not prepared for fighting. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sets things up in a way and commands him to go and fight. The Prophet ﷺ, he understands his Sahaba are human. So he says to the Sahaba, among them Muhajirin and Ansar, he says to them, he says, what do you guys think? One of them stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, we should go and fight. It's not a matter of a question. We should go and fight. They've got our stuff, we're coming here to take our rights. So the Prophet ﷺ, he asked again, what do you guys think? And so another Sahabi stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, we should go and fight. The Prophet ﷺ, he then asked the third time, what do you think? Why does he keep repeating this question? Until one of the Ansar stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, it seems as though you want one of us to answer. Because the Muhajirin that came from Mecca, they have nothing to lose. They left everything behind in Mecca. They've got nothing except their clothes and that's it. They've got nothing to lose. Of course they're going to say go and fight. But the people of Al-Ansar of Medina, they had everything to lose. They had their families in Medina. They had their businesses in Medina. They had their wealth in Medina. They had their livelihood in Medina. They had everything to lose. So this Ansari stood up and he said, Ya Rasulullah, it seems as though you want one of us to answer. Because he was asking the Muhajirin and he kept asking until one of the Ansar stood up. Listen to what he says. He says, we will not tell you what Bani Israel told Musa alayhi salam, go you and your Rabb fight. We are sitting here. He connected the lesson that was revealed in the Quran and the story. He connected that to his situation now. We connect the situation 1400 years ago to now. Because in their time, 1400 years ago, Musa alayhi salam was what? Hundreds and hundreds of years before. Yet they were still connecting that time to their situation then. The same way that we should do it now. Can you see the connection? He said, we will not tell you what Bani Israel told Musa alayhi salam, go you and your Rabb, go and fight, we are sitting here. He said, go and fight and we are with you. We are in front of you and to your right and to your left and behind you. We are with you. Go and fight. The Prophet ﷺ, his face was shining bright. You can see how they could relate and the impact that it had. And obviously what happened in Badr was history. We know what happened with Badr. Allah gave them victory. After they connected and they learned the lesson that was revealed, Allah gave them victory. Now, I want to mention a couple of things. Allah talks a lot about the heart in the Quran. In one verse he says, Allah had brought their hearts together. And if you were to spend what is on earth completely, Jami'an, you would not have brought their hearts together. But Allah brought their hearts together. The matter of the heart and all of these actions are connected. Islam is tied in everything. It is all related. And everything in our life is one way or another related and connected. As Isaac Newton has got the law that for every action there is a opposite reaction, or for every action there's a reaction, and all of that. For every action you do, you're going to get an effect somewhere else in your life. Something might happen, you go, that was because I sinned. Something might happen, you're like, that's because I gave that sadaqah. Something might happen, you said, that's because I made dua. Something took place, that was because my mum made dua. Something happened because of I helped this person, or something, it all gets connected. It's something so small to show you how this whole ecosystem works. Everything affects everything. one of the biggest philosophers, business philosophers, he actually said this word. He said, everything affects everything. Your heart affects your life and your iman and everything. The Prophet ﷺ, he spoke about a hadith, he spoke in a hadith to one of the young Sahaba to clean their heart, to go to sleep and to wake up not having any bad feelings towards anyone, towards their fellow brothers and sisters. This is very fundamental. Is it possible? 100%. Is it easy for some people? Yes. Is it hard for others? Yes. But is it impossible? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. When the Prophet ﷺ, he said to the Sahaba, there's going to be a man coming in, and he's from the people of Jannah. And we know this story. It's a famous story. One of the Sahaba, he spoke to him after saying, he made up some story about him and his father had a fight so he can sleep over his house and see what goes on. And he said he wasn't fasting, he wasn't praying qiyam, he wasn't doing anything out of the ordinary, none of these things. And then he finally exposed himself and he said, tell me, this is what happened, tell me what's your secret. He said, I go to sleep cleaning my heart from any bad feelings I have to anyone. It's one thing. You can do whatever you want in your life. But the Prophet ﷺ, he described or attributed this man to the people of paradise because of one thing. You want Firdaus, you want Jannah, you want all these things, you want to drink from the hand of the Prophet ﷺ in Al-Kawthar. All the actions equal this one thing. He said, this is a man from the people of Jannah. Because having that clear heart before you sleep or when you wake up has a magnitude of impact. And sometimes this ill feeling that you have in your heart towards others can also have a magnitude of impact. Negative impact. Not positive impact. SubhanAllah, there was a story of a young man who was working in a company. He was mentioning this story that one of his colleagues wasn't practicing at all. And this brother obviously was practicing. Over some time, there was a bit of a issue that happened. It wasn't in any of their hands. Anyway, long story short, this non-practicing brother turned the tables and put in his mind that this practicing brother had done something wrong and was accusing him of all these bad and nasty things. And he was saying bad words and everything in front of people, through the communication network, all of these things. It was, the guy was saying, he goes, subhanAllah, he goes, it was the ugliest thing I've seen. And throughout the whole time, that practicing brother stayed respectful. Every time he would say something, the brother either wouldn't reply or would just say, just try to move on with it in a very respectful way. Until at the end he mentioned a word and he said, please, this is enough, we need to move on. And he didn't, and the other guy who was saying, he goes, he didn't leave any word under the sun, as they say in Arabic. Every single bad word he can think of, he was just blasting, and this person wasn't replying back. And he kept continuing working, and because he used to report back to him. And he kept continuing working and giving him all his work and everything. Until about a month ago, the brother was saying, he said about a month ago, that a colleague of his came back to him. And he said, I've never said this to anyone, but I want to tell you because I haven't seen anyone do the way you do. He said, I used to work in an industry that it was all snakes and all dodgy people and nasty people. And that's how they used to do with each other when anything used to happen. He said, I had never seen anyone with this character. The guy, he said to him, he said, this isn't my character. He said, this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. Since then, that guy was saying, he said, I've been learning my deen since that moment. The non-practicing guy. Everything affects everything. I want to mention a few points. Number one, the tongue speaks things that your ears hear. And what your ears hear, your brain registers. I call this self-talk. The tongue is a reflection of the heart. If you speak nice words, it's a reflection of your heart. If you speak nasty words, it's a reflection of your heart. This is the simple equation. Everyone is responsible for this. Everyone is responsible for this. No one can say, you caused me to do this, or you caused me to do that, or you caused me to do this. No one caused you to do anything. You made the decision and the choice to react the way that you react. Remember, everything affects everything. The tongue can become cleaned from the heart. At the same time, the heart can begin to get cleaned from the tongue. The feeling of istighfar, the feeling of dua for those that hurt you, will eventually come out in the tongue. If it's struggling to do that in the heart, then use your tongue to clean your heart. Someone did something bad to you, make dua for them. Your brain is saying, what's going on? And your heart is saying, this is what needs to happen for them and for me. One of the scholars, he said, if a husband and wife are having trouble, and the husband is not happy from his wife, he said, then let the husband make dua to Allah to rectify his wife, so that you find that with that dua, the wife that he hates will eventually become the wife that he loves. Put that model as friends, as husband, as wife, as brothers, as cousins, as whatever it may be. Because if someone does something nasty to you, it's easy to raise your hands and make dua against them, correct? That's easy. The non-Muslims have got this, and also, to be honest, the Muslims have also got this too. But Allah sent us this beautiful guidance, that when that happens, if we were to raise our hands and make dua, this is following the sunnah against those that harmed you. Against those that harmed you, this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ to make dua for them. Imagine you're making dua against someone that you deal with. If you're going to continue dealing with them, how do you think that relationship is going to go? It's not going to go very good, is it? You know, there was once an experiment. They got 2 jars of rice. Rice, you know rice? Yeah. They got 2 jars. They filled it up with rice, and they put some water in both. Same rice, same water. This jar, they would wake up every morning and they would hug it, and they would say, I love you, and they would show affection to this jar of rice. And to this one, they would pick it up every morning and they would say bad words to it and just have this ugly feeling towards it. I saw this with my own eyes. After 14 days, this one, the one that they were showing love and affection, remained just like sticky white rice with water, as it was. And this one, you know what happened to it? It became moldy. Your words and energy and affection and lack of affection has an impact. Everything affects everything. The Prophet ﷺ, over 23 years, after persecution and battles and all of this, he would still welcome people into Islam with open arms. When he went to a Ta'if, voluntarily, they didn't ask him, he went to invite them to Jannah, to invite them to the truth. It's for their good, not for him. They started laughing at him. They said, come sit down. And he thought they were being serious. And then they started asking stupid questions. And they're trying to humiliate him. And then at the end they began slandering him. And they said, get out. And not only that, they didn't throw stones at him. They got the children to throw stones at him. You know, there's the difference between if an adult kicks you out as opposed to when a child kicks you out. It's even more humiliating. He was humiliated emotionally. He was humiliated mentally. He was humiliated physically until he left Ta'if bleeding from all the stoning that the children were throwing at him. Have you ever been in a state of mind where emotionally you've been shook? Mentally you might have been shaken? If someone was to say, tell me and I'll do whatever you want now, most people will say, yeah, do that to them, or do that to them, or do this, or they need this, or they deserve this, or whatever. Imagine if you're physically abused as well, and you're looking and you're seeing blood coming from your body, and you're a messenger sent from Allah. How would you feel? Jibreel alayhi salam comes down. And he says, Ya Rasulullah, just say the word. Just say the word. And this whole town of Al-Ta'if is crushed. Just with the tip of my wings, he will destroy this whole town. The Prophet ﷺ, what did he say? Although he was given permission, and although if he chose to, Allah would not be upset, he wasn't sent as a curse. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. You were not sent except as a mercy to mankind. He said, no. Maybe one day someone will come out from here saying, La ilaha illallah. You know what that means? He never gave up. He didn't give up. It wasn't the straw that broke the camel's back, as they say. He wasn't sent to curse. Full stop. He was sent as a mercy to mankind. Full stop. Not he was sent as a mercy to mankind in Mecca, and then when he went to Medina, all hell broke loose. He was not sent except as a mercy to mankind. The reaction that he had to a Ta'if, this is a sunnah. Connect that event that happened to your life now. You might have done something good and someone's turned it and twisted it in a way that is really ugly and even made you look bad. And you say, I wasn't sent to curse. I still have in my heart hope that these would come out saying La ilaha illallah. The Prophet ﷺ, he never reminded the people of the harm that they did. Every single person that ever harmed him, never say, remember that one time you did this? Remember that time you did that to me? He never said that. Because he never did that for the person to begin with. He did that for Allah. The sincerity in your actions will show, if not later, on the day when you stand before Allah. But the impact of that, you will definitely see it in dunya. 100%. And the fruits of this was when Abu Jahl and Umar al-Khattab were both fighting Islam. And they used to both mock and persecute and even kill Muslims. Even Umar al-Khattab, on the night that he went to, when he became Muslim, that night he was on his way to kill the Prophet ﷺ. He was walking to his house with the sword around his neck. The Prophet ﷺ, with that, he used to make dua. Ya Allah, imagine these two people that hate him. They hate him. They hate his guts. They want to kill him. And he's there making dua for them. Ya Allah. Not only making dua for them and saying, Ya Allah, guide them. He's saying, Ya Allah, bring honor to Islam with one of them. The generosity of his heart and the kindness and the wanting good for people was shown in that dua. Did Allah accept that dua? What happened? What happened?
He became Muslim.
Who?
He became Muslim.
Umar al-Khattab became Muslim. The largest expansion of the Islamic Ummah was at the hands of Umar. The conquest of Jerusalem was at the hands of who? Umar. The conquest of Persia and the Byzantine Empire was at the hands of who? Umar. Imagine if at that moment he was saying, Ya Allah, destroy Umar and Abu Jahl. Do you think we would be Muslim here today? Allahu A'lam. An event that takes place plus the reaction equals the outcome. For example, you're driving, someone cuts you off. No one had an accident, no one died. You're still driving. This person's now in front of you. That's an event that took place. If I react and I start swearing and cursing and this and my blood pressure goes up and all these things that happen, and what would be the outcome? It could be the person pulls over and starts to smash my window, starts to swear at me too, has an accident, breaks and this and all these problems start happening. Event plus the reaction equals the outcome. If I change the reaction, if he cuts me off, I say, no one has died, no one had an accident, everything is still cruising. Ya Allah, guide him. And I go like this. And then maybe that person didn't see you even. And he realized that and he put his hand up saying sorry. Is everything still going smooth now? Everything is still going smooth. We want the sunnah in our reactions. This is something that would either change the world or potentially destroy the world. We need to be able to connect like the Sahaba connected themselves with the story of Bani Israel, for us to connect all of those stories with our life today, because all of them are applicable and adaptable to our life today. In the hardest moments of the Prophet ﷺ's life, where he faced the most challenges, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala revealed Surah Yusuf. The story of Yusuf alayhi salam, Surah Yusuf is the only surah in the whole Quran that has the complete story from beginning to end in one surah. I once asked a brother who had memorized the Quran, I said, what was the easiest surah to memorize? Thought he was going to say like some of the small ones from Juz' Amma or something like this. He said, no, it was Surah Yusuf. Because from beginning to end, it's one story. You're not going from one event to another event, from this ruling to that ruling, to these guidance, to these words. It was one story. Yusuf alayhi salam, after all of his story, and Yusuf alayhi salam in his life, he had such an amazing journey in his life. Low, high, this, jail, wells, slavery, all of these things. And all of that happened because of his brothers that were jealous of him, and they tried to kill him or tried to put him in a well, and we know the story. At the end, when his brothers came, they didn't recognize him, but he recognized them. He still gave them some goods, but he still wanted them to come back. And then he put them in a situation that was actually, he was protecting them, and they realized that that was Yusuf, their brother. What did he say to them after all of this? And after, because of that, Allah had made him in the highest levels because of his patience and his trust in Allah. Allah put him in a powerful position. Not in a low position. While he had the highest position and he had a power in his hands and he could have done whatever he wanted to his brothers, what did he say to them? There is no blame on you today. I have forgiven you. What did the Prophet ﷺ say when he entered Mecca? When he conquered Mecca? The same words. He used the words of Yusuf ﷺ from thousands of years before, and he connected it because the same thing that happened to him happened to him. And when he came back as an authority and he came to open Mecca, and the people that were trying to fight him and kill him and do all these things to him, before they even said, forgive us, he didn't even wait for them to ask. Because the situation showed who was in power and who was victorious now. But he didn't want them to even feel bad. They should be having good feelings towards Islam. And he said, I have forgiven you, there is no blame on you today. He did this with the humility. The same way that Yusuf alayhi salam did with his brothers. And subhanAllah, the worst situation was when Hind and Wahshi, they killed Hamza, and not only that, they mutilated him, and there are some narrations that she even took his liver just so she can bite it and chew it just because of her disgust and hatred towards Hamza and the Prophet ﷺ and Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, for those two in particular, he still obviously naturally, he accepted them, and they accepted Islam. He said, but everything that happened is clean between you and me. But don't let me see your faces. Only because when I see your faces, I remember my uncle Hamza. They were the ones that killed and mutilated one of the most beloved people to the Prophet ﷺ. Yet he still forgave them. No one has ever done that to our family, correct? They did that to his family, and he still accepted, and he still forgave them. But all he did was just saying, try to avoid letting me see you. He didn't say, stay out of my face, I don't want to see you guys, don't come back here. They were still living in Medina. But don't catch my eye, because when I see your faces, I remember my uncle Hamza, and I remember his body and what you did to it. That was it. He was sent as a mercy. He was sent as a mercy. Aisha radiallahu anha, when the fitna happened with the rumor starting that she had committed zina with one of the Sahaba, the Prophet ﷺ, was a very tough time. The Prophet ﷺ, because this is the wife of the Prophet, the Prophet ﷺ, he didn't speak to her for a month because he didn't know. He was just waiting from the revelation of Allah. When Allah came and cleared it, the person that began to spread that rumor was someone that Abu Bakr used to give weekly allowance, sadaqah for. He used to depend on Abu Bakr for his income. He used to be one of the masakin that Abu Bakr used to give sadaqah to every single week so he can survive. When this happened, Abu Bakr said, I'm going to stop giving my sadaqah. And after it was cleared, the Prophet ﷺ, he had very bad grudge against this person. It was his wife. What did Allah reveal? Forgive and pardon them. would you not want Allah to forgive and pardon you? Deal with people like you're dealing with Allah. Don't forgive because it's something you should judge whether they deserve being forgiven or not. Forgive because you're dealing with them is my dealing with my Rabb. I am forgiving you, hoping that Allah will forgive me. I will let you off, hoping that Allah will let me off. I also have many more shortcomings. If we come with this heart, the sunnah in actions and in reactions and in the feelings of the heart, you will find that all these challenges and difficulties and things that take place in your life, on the day of judgment you realize that they are nothing more than a mercy, because it was through them and by you following the guidance of the Prophet ﷺ in his sunnah and in the way that Allah has revealed, you will find it's because of those reasons and your reactions that Allah will enter you into Jannah. These are opportunities. These difficulties in life are opportunities. You decide whether you want to profit from them or whether you want to lose from them. SubhanAllah, it's not the situation that you find yourself in, but it's what you do with the situation that you find yourself in. There was one organization in Sydney called MATW. You guys know the story of Ali Bana? He was a young man, very wealthy, very successful in his business. Very wealthy. He got diagnosed with cancer. And stage 4 cancer, which means basically it's too late. At that moment, he switched his life around. He sold all of his things and he gave many of it to charity, and in fact he began his own charity called MATW Project, Muslims Around the World Project, which, what's that now, like 5 years after it was established, is now a multi-million-dollar organization, charity, and if you see the work that they're doing, it's amazing, and how much it's grown year after year after year after year. And that was because of one decision, that I've been given this. Either I use it to my advantage, or if I don't do anything and go into the wall, what's it going to do? He took the calamity and the challenge and the difficulty as an opportunity. And this is the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. The fact that he could have done whatever he wanted, but he knew that the right thing to do was this. And you will see the fruits of it. I swear by Allah, you will see the fruits of it in dunya, and you will see the fruits of it in akhirah. And you are never the loser. You are always the winner. Always. Nobody ever deals with Allah. No one ever has a dealing with Allah and they lose. Every single dealing you have with Allah is a profit. So we ask Allah that He tests us with good and not with bad, because we shouldn't ask for bad tests. But we also ask Allah that if by His decree and wisdom and knowledge that He does test us with difficulties, to allow us to see them and to use them to our advantage in dunya and in akhirah. And if this happens, it might be that you hate something, but it is good for you. And it might be the reason for you entering into Jannah. And really at the end of the day, this life is only a few days. This life is like this. Yesterday we were born. Now we're getting grey hair. Allahu Alam if we will live to get more grey hair. This life is a blink of an eye. But in the akhirah, this is where it will all be worth it. So the wise one and the smart believer is the one that takes these opportunities, these challenges, with this heart and this approach, and inshallah you'll see the impact and the fruits in dunya, and inshallah in akhirah. We ask Allah to always allow us to see the good and the wisdom behind these, and to allow us to act in a way and react in a way that pleases Him and is according to his guidance and the sunnah of the Prophet عليه الصلاة والسلام. آمين. آمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. جزاكم الله خير.